Yeah. I get really hypnotised. Said, I think I'm limited. I think we should sponsor you to tell her. Now I am. So I started to do they sent me to their expert. I showed him videos of the sorts of roads I like to do and stuff like that. He talked to me about how to ride, and then that was it. He said, these are the tyres for you. I've got one there if I want to switch it on, but I may try not to. Because I quite like projecting. Okay. Apparently you push that one and it works.
But thank you very much for coming along. We've got 3 speakers for you this afternoon at 2, 3 and 4. First up we have Duncan Gough. Duncan Gough is an author, traveller and pretty much probably knows everything there is to know about roads, especially black roads in Spain and Portugal. What he doesn't know probably isn't worth knowing, and if you enjoy what you hear and you haven't already, you can pick his books up from the White Bee store in the centre of town. So I won't waste any more of your time. I'll hand you straight over to Duncan and you can hear what he has to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. I'll use the mic if I need to, but so wave at me if you can't hear me. But I normally what? I need the mic. And using the mic. I think it's better for the streaming as well. Anyway, the screaming, yeah, there will be screaming. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. Really, I've been a traveller since the age of 2, because I was born in Wimbledon. I'm a Womble, but then at the age of 2, I was transported to Rhodesia by my parents, and grew up kind of on a small farm in the middle of 100 acres of bush in the middle of what is now Zimbabwe. And then eventually we came back, and since then I've just always loved travel. I've lived and worked in Greece, Italy, France, Scotland, some outlying areas really. And but the first time I went to Spain, I just fell in love with Spain, and I've just loved it ever since. And so that was about 40 years ago when my parents built a little house down near Himera de Liva near Ronda. And then in 2000, I went back there, I worked there a few times, and then in 2000 I started doing an annual bike trip. And what happened was that I'd taken the family and we'd gone to Burgos, and my wife saw a rosary in the shop on a Friday night. she said to me that night, she said, "Oh, I'd really like one of those rosaries." We went back the next morning to get it, but it was an All Saints Day, and it was closed. The shop was closed. So I said, "Tell you what, I will come back on my motorbike and buy that for you. I'll only take a week." And so I did that. Went back and bought the rosary and had 3 days in Bourges. And by the way, Bourges is my favourite city in the whole world. I love it. And I know it very well now. It's 100 miles south of Santander. And then the next year I found another excuse, and then another excuse the following year. And so it soon became established fact that every year I went to Spain on my motorbike and travelled around. And as I sketch, when I travel, my notebooks, my sketchbooks became part of something that became a book. And so the first book was Back Roads of Spain, which details those first 10 years of journeys and the people I met and the experiences I had. And that then people started asking me how to do Spain. So I wrote my book, Sketches of Spain. Unfortunately, I'd already used Back Roads of Spain, I would have used that as the title for the main guide, but there we are. So Sketches of Spain, if you can see that, there's a sort of network across there. Sketches of Spain covers those different areas and routes, the journeys that I did. And I call it a personal guidebook because I detail my experiences as well as giving you a map and telling you what the roads are like. And of course they may change over the years, but my idea is for people to get the kind of wonderful experience of the back roads of Spain that I have had, and the fact that the Spanish people are so friendly and such a wonderful people to visit with, and the roads are superb. I don't do the costas, by the way, so forget that bit. I very occasionally go to the beach, but that's not somewhere I normally go. One of the things about Spain is it is an incredibly mountainous country, second most mountainous in Europe, or something like that. And so up here is the Cordillera Cantábrica, which stretches all across there. The Picos, which everybody goes on about, and I feel it's a bit like Blackpool, is one very small part of it. There is a lot more than just the Picos. Down here, obviously down at the bottom here, the Sierra Nevada, you can sit in 40 degrees in Granada town and look up and see the snow on the top of the mountain, because that is the southernmost permanent snow in the whole of Europe. And you've got North Africa is just over here, 14,000 odd feet. But then you've got the Gredos and the Guadarrama here, which is a wonderful spine of mountains that runs around Madrid. And that goes up to 8,500 feet. And I recently did a guided tour in May. That was the high passes of the Gredos. In 6 days, we did 60,000 feet of up and down. On one day, we did 5 passes, five huertas. That was 14,500 feet. And that's because you can go from a little place called Piedranita, 12 miles to the Puerta de Pena Negra, and you have gone up 3,000 feet in 12 miles. And that whole mountain range is a very sharp spine. It's just wonderful. The zigzag across, there's fantastic places there to visit. Of course, you get a lot of different temperature ranges because of those mountains. That's June, and I'm standing at the top col of the Gredos Mountains, and there's still a lot of snow up there. And then, of course, there's down the Almeria, the desert there, where the westerns were filmed, and it's pretty hot down there. That's good fun to go and see, but I will come on to things like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The final scene of that was filmed up in the north, way up in the north, near Wales. So there's all these areas, and then, of course, there's the flat plains in between. And people who think that Spain is a bit of a desert, it's because the main roads obviously use those open plains because it's nice and easy to build a road. So if you stick to the main road, that's what you see, desert. This area here is the Tierra de los Campos, and has been farmed since pre-Roman times, and that's one of those deserts. It's very flat, it's cereal. Along the Douro Valley, there's some nice places, nice bits, but a lot of it is not great. And so what looks like an obvious route to southern Portugal will be through Valladolid, which is about here, and Salamanca, which is here. Now both places can be good to visit, but Salamanca, for instance, has the best Pla de Mayor probably in Spain. But it's looking at those routes and finding routes, which is what I'm about. Now one of the things about Spain, now, of course, we Brits don't often talk about the empires. Well, the first global empire was the Spanish Empire. In the 1500s, they were the sailors who covered the whole world, and it was there, the wealth and culture that came back from there that went so far towards Spain having one of the most World Heritage sites almost anywhere. It is a fantastically rich country. When you start going to Spain, don't try and get 300 miles on the first day. If you're going by ferry, you arrive at Santander or Bilbao, there are some fabulous little places just within that first day when you come off the ferry. Go 100 miles for me if you're going south, that's Burgos, and in between there you have got places like, I'll push the wrong button again. Oops. Right. So there's a big glacial valley there. That's the Anso Valley. It's absolutely stunning. And now that is about 45 minutes from Santander when you come off the ferry. Just get straight off up into the mountains and you can come to this amazing place. There is a huge limestone Sierra there, the Sierra del Onico, and there's all the clints and gripes and limestone caves and all sorts of things. Then Frias has an amazing castle, that's a bit further down. I'll try and see if I can point. Frias is down over here. Riviesca has the Santuario de Santa Casilda, nice little detour. I'm all about detours. This is about 80 miles from Santander. It's just as you drop over the top on the N623, down into the Ebro Valley. The kissing camels are up here. You can just about see them, amazing rock formations. And just on the other side of there is the Cascades of Obanega del Castillo. And that is like 3 miles off the main road. So it's just worth taking these little detours. Pova del Sal a little bit further off towards the east. Amazing castle on top of this great piece of rock. You don't have to pay, you just go there and go and climb up in there, and it's sheer on either side. It's great views. And there's Roman salt pans there as well, Pova del Sal, the fountain of salt, which obviously was why this was so rich an area, but there was a palace and a defensive castle to protect the lands. That's a little map of the Sierra del Onico, which is this bit here. So there's Santander. Let's say you can just go down the motorway as far as Solares and come off, and then head straight up into the mountains. And this area here is superb. Here is Romales de la Victoria. Now it's a little sort of market town, but a brilliant place to stay before the ferry or when you come off the ferry. You don't want to go too far. And just ease yourself into Spain rather than trying to do long distance. It's also a safety thing as far as I'm concerned, because if you get on a motorway when you come off that ferry, it's a motorway and it's just all the same, you just do all that. Then perhaps you come off that when your concentration is a bit down. That's when you look the wrong way, or go the wrong way around a roundabout, or something that has, consequences. One little tip is if you're going along And the road signs, I've got that back to you. You're on the wrong side of the road. It keeps it in there. It's just one of those little checks. The other thing is that it's things like coming out of a petrol station is one little worse, because you go so automatic to pull across onto the wrong side of the road. Coming out of Santander, it's all changed. I did have a map. They've now got a new system, and they really try and spit you out right down through the docks, which actually makes it much easier. It used to be that you could get lost into the town, and it is more efficient, and they've got more passport controls, which is great because it's much quicker when there's maybe 100 bikes coming off the ferry. It gets busy. I use this, the N623. Now, it's the old road to Burgos, but it's not signposted. What you have to do is come round from the port, and it's the first junction on that motorway. And it says N623 Vargas, and that's what you go for. Once you've gone up the road a little bit, the old sign saying Burgos are there. But otherwise, they try and send you round to Aguirre del Campo, and it's a long way round, and it's all motorway. Burgos, my favourite city. So much to see. The castle here looks out, and you get great views from there. Below it is all the old town. And along here, along the river, is the Espolon, where in the evenings everybody walks along, and all the grandchildren, and everybody's having a cup of coffee and a beer, and the plane trees are all joined together above your head to give you shade. It's beautiful. Over here is the Museum of Humankind, and that is, I'm not a big museum person really, but I tell you that museum is worth it. And partly it's because Atapuerca is close by. That human remains go back 600,000 years. And so you've got there, the museum takes you through all the stages of humankind. And for me, again, this is part of travel, is not just sticking with points that you've picked out to tick off. I'm going to go there, I'm going to go there. It's what's in between that matters, and those little detours that suddenly find gems for you. That's the museum. The 12th century cathedral is in front, and at the very back is the Sierra de la Demanda, my favourite little mountain. It goes up to 7,500 feet. It's a bigger area than the Picos. It's great to explore. And I happen to have bought a little orchard there. Oh, maybe I should get that secret. I do have a claim to Burgos actually, because I don't mention it in Wales where I live, but I have a family tree that goes back to Edward I, and he happened to be married in Burgos. So obviously I've got, that's why, I've got some Spanish blood somewhere there. This is the map of the Sierra de la Demanda. It's got some great places in it. You can't really see it, but at the top there is the big view from 6,000 feet. You can go up to 6,000 feet and see 60 miles in that direction and 60 miles or more in that direction. You're overlooking all the folds of mountains and the embalsers and everything else. Take a little trip to a little village called Huerta de la Lima. Now it's tiny, it's about 4,000 feet up, got maybe, 100 houses at the most. And in the small bar, which is the Bar de Fuente, next to the fountain, not the big bar, which is a little bit further away, but in the small bar, behind the door, in the dark, you will find a stuffed two-headed calf. Now, it's a bit weird, but it's kind of fun, and that's again one of those detours that I like to take. There's also a story about it. It's in my books. The poor lady who runs it was widowed, and years ago I saw her with her father looking after her little baby and stuff like that. So I always go back and try and give her some custard. Her daughter is now taller than me. Also, not far away from there, Quintana de la Sierra, a 10th century necropolis. It's about 4 kilometres up a forestry road, away from a wonderful campsite with a beautiful restaurant. And they have cabins as well, so you've got choices. Also, around the corner, oh yes, I don't know if you can see, but there was me trying to fit in one of those sheds in the rock, but of course they were rather shorter in those days, and I couldn't find one to fit. Zed Hill Cemetery from the end of the Good, Bad, and the Ugly is there, as is the battle scene, as is the prisoner of war camp, as is the mission from that same film. So again, it's those little detours, finding them, knowing about them, and just fitting them into your itinerary, which is what I'm all about. If you go to the west, it's the green coast for a reason, because there's a lot of rain. And that's because of all the westerly weather systems pile up along the Portuguese border, spill along. But I must say that the number of times that I have come out of Santander on that N623, I've got to the Puerta del Escudo, going over the top of the Cantabrians, and it's been pissing the rain all the way up, and then suddenly cross the mountain and you're in sunshine. In a quarter of a mile, you've gone from sort of 15 degrees to 25 degrees. It makes all the difference when you go where in Spain. Obviously, in August, you don't want to be down in Andalusia unless you want to sit in some air-conditioned hotel for most of the time. Or you go out all night instead, which can be good. Anyway. The Vigos de Europa, yes, 20 is very spectacular, but personally, I figure to go through there in 1 day or 2 days at the most. And as a matter of fact, if you do think about going there in May, Potes, which is the Blackpool of the Picos, happens to have an average of 15 days of rain in May, so you may be unlucky. Whereas Burgos, which is over the mountain, or Riaño, which is again over the mountain, you're talking about 4 or 5 days of rain. That's the kind of difference you get. This also means that if you're in Spain and you get some rubbish weather, just have a look around, and the chances are you can avoid it by just going 50 miles. Sometimes it's only a matter of 10 miles. You just, thunderstorm coming, tormenta coming this way, and I'll go that. And you can go around, and because the country is so nice and big, and you get those expanses and distances to see, you can see where that weather is, and make a point of going around. The detail on these maps isn't really going to show up, so I'll just flick through a bit. Almeida in Portugal, amazing fortress, and lovely little place. It's inland, it's good to go and see. If anybody has read the Sharp books by Bernard Cornwell or stuff, or seen the series, then Almeida was where a spark blew the top of the town off. Apparently they heard it in Lisbon, and it was one of the biggest pre-Second World War explosions ever. But you can walk all the way around this wonderful fortress and have a look at it. Nice place to stay. Detours, mere detours. A little bit further on in Portugal, I saw a sign for a place called Soba. I thought, I better go there. And so I headed off for Soba, and on the way I spotted this, and I thought, dead on arrival. It goes with biking and drinking. Sorry, my mind's perhaps a little bit convoluted, but there you go. So I just had to have a picture of that. In fact, I also, because of that detour, I found the Canyon del Cielo, which is an amazing little canyon. I went there through a forest. It was all covered in cloud, and then for 30 seconds it opened up and I had this magical view of this canyon, and then it closed up again. It's the moments that matter. On the Douro, I said about it being very flat. Well, Douro, between Zamora and Tordesillas, is a wonderful place to stay. And Hotel Juan Dos is the place to stay. Ask for a balcony room, and you get this fantastic view from the balcony. You've got a cold beer, and you're listening to the swifts circling around and screaming, and watching the storks coming flying in from the plains. Also, they have very good wine. Vino tinto, muy bueno. Let's go northeast. Now, steer clear, really, of the bottom of the Ebro Valley. It is dry and dusty most of the time. So I either go around the top and use the Pyrenees, or I also come down from Soria, and there's some great places down there. Now, on this map, I've only got Alcoriza in there, but I've been recently doing some guided tours going to Albarracín, which is superb little Sierra, between Cuenca and Albarracín, and the Serranía de Cuenca. Now, this happens to have the nacimientos, the places where a number of rivers start. So amazingly, the Tagus starts way over here, just by where it says Alcoriza, and goes out to Lisbon, the other side of the whole country. But there are other rivers that start in just in this one mountain area, which is great to explore. Going across the Oaxaca, you've got Camp Frangistacion. I went there this June, and they finished doing all the work that was in this photograph, and it is now an amazing hotel, superb. The reason for it, in 1912, the French and Spanish agreed to join up their railway system. So they started digging a damn big tunnel, called it the Somport Tunnel, and they dug it through, coming through to Jaca. They got through there, and realised that the Spanish and French railways had different gauges. So they had to build a damn big railway station to swap everybody from French trains to Spanish trains. And it fell into disuse, but now, as I say, it's a beautiful hotel. It's an amazing thing to go and visit. Jaca itself has got another lovely castle of the era of artillery, where it's built to bounce cannonballs over. And actually, going to the museum, the dioramas in there are absolutely incredible. All little models of all sorts of things, from battles to rescues to everything. Las Badenas Reales near Tadela. We're getting down into the bottom of the Ebro Valley here, and there's a rain shadow effect because of the Sierra de la Demanda and Sierra de Cebolla and the Pyrenees. So you've got this semi-desert, and there's 40 kilometres or more of dirt road, if that's the sort of thing you'd like to go around. Getting James Bond and their Game of Thrones as well. Lots of film locations are used that. Getting over into the Pyrenees, wonderful places to go, lovely stuff. By the way, I've written books about all of this, which you'll find out about afterwards. The Motor Museum at Casella is well worth a visit. And just up there, the Mirador de Serra Seca is a little back road with these amazing views. Motorismo run that museum, and they've been very good to me because they have paid to advertise in the back of my books. But they've also provided a load of GPS download routes that you can take all around the Catalan Pyrenees. I do recommend the Zoo del Pirineo. It's actually a kind of rescue hospice for all sorts of animals and birds. And one of the things is that there you can see those vultures and eagles that you normally catch just way up in the sky. You can see them really up close. And there is also there a raven that you can hand feed. He speaks Spanish, by the way. There's also a fox and a yen that think they're domesticated animals. It's great fun. They also do falconry displays, and the eagle owl whacked me on the head where I was sitting there. And it's run completely from people who pay to go in. So again, it's a wonderful thing to support. I've got a friend who has these American quarter horses. If you fancy trying a real horse instead of an armed horse, then the sofa horse is the one for beginners, as you can see. You can stand on top of it. I thought it would be a bit mean to be doing that in my bike boot, so I just sat on it. But there we go. And also I happened to be there in the Fiesta de San Juan Go Sol, which is near Petraforca, again in that area. And you never know when you can get a fiesta or some great experience in Spain. You can rock up into a town and there's a wedding on, and you'll be invited to join it. Or there'll be a cena publica, which is a public dinner. And everybody chucks in their money, and 40 people, one table, all down in the pub, and they order, and let's all have eat and drink and This time it was a big bonfire in the middle of the village, massive bonfire. And then all the kids were wandering around with carrier bags. And I wondered what was going on. And then I realised that all those carrier bags were filled with fireworks. And all the little kids had those little gas flame lighters. And this was a little kid who was there relighting his fireworks. I thought, oh my God. And there were fireworks going off all over the place. Oh, it was great fun. I went on to 6 o'clock there and 3 o'clock in the next village. So experience the best of it and really let yourself go there. And then one of the things is do try your Spanish out. Now, my number one thing to say is lo siento, mi español es poco, which isn't perhaps the correct way of saying my Spanish is little, but that's the point. And you only need, in my book I've got 2 pages, which is the essential Spanish, and just use it, because there's afraid of trying a foreign language as you are of trying that. And if you just make that bit of effort, the rewards can be so great. I've got lifelong friends just because I started talking to them. And then you find out, sometimes you'll find that actually they've got some English, they were just scared of using it. Or if it's something that you particularly want, something like you need a specific type of oil. If you try, they'll send for one of the school kids who has got some English to come and help, Cardona, God, what a place that. Now the Paradors are government-run hotels all over Spain, and they are in great places. So it's a bit like if the National Trust actually had some idea about things, and actually made hotels out of their big places. That's what the government has done. So the Parador in Cardona is in that medieval castle. And I went there, and I really wanted to stay. I thought, I've got to stay in this. Anyway, I rocked up on the bike about 7 o'clock, and I saw the guy who was there, and I said, oh, I was going camping, but I wondered if you had a cheap room, And he said, oh, 120 euros. I went, no, that's not in my budget. I said, I am an amigo, because you can join the Paradors and have a free card, and that gets you points and so on and so forth. And he said, oh, 100 euros. So I still sucked my teeth and said, oh, that's too much. Luckily, the boss guy was there, and he came around, got on the computer, did some typing, and he said, you know what? We've got a special deal for teenagers this weekend. I can do it for 75. Yes, I'm staying in Cardona. there are other superb Paradors. Sigüenza is also inside a medieval castle, and it's great to stay in. And they're great things to do. Valdearan, very high. That's in July. It was 5 degrees. Don't go to Spain thinking that everywhere is hot. Because it isn't. And that's one of the good points. When it's very hot, head for the mountains. You can lose. I've been in Pedralba, which is near Segovia, and gone up to the Puerto de Malafria, and I've lost 15 degrees in 15 miles. So it can be well worth just looking at that sort of thing. Again, it's a map, you won't be able to see much of it. Those are all the routes that I did in my series about the Catalan Pyrenees. Central, that's Piedrahita is down below, that's 3,000 feet in 12 miles off the top of the Gredos. Avila, superb, walled city, really well worth a visit. The Parador there is in the palace, which is very nice, but I've also recently found a really nice hotel called Las Morales, which is just right outside the main gate into Avila. Salamanca, superb, that part of Mayor. All you can hear when you walk in there is the sound of people, of humanity, of feet and talking, and no traffic sound. Just outside Salamanca is the battlefield of Salamanca, where Wellington beat the French. Well, he beat them quite a few times, but that was one of the big battles, and it's quite interesting to go there, because it's as it was. So, if you look up the battle, you can really kind of work out where everybody was. Cuenca, over on the far side, I talked about the Serranía de Cuenca, superb city built on the top of this gorge, so you get great views. There are hanging houses, they call them there, which are built out, wooden balconies, way up, sticking out over the edge of the cliff. Ron's got the same as well. Pity you can't see that. This is just north of Albufeira. Now this is another one of my favourite detours. So the Spanish do have a say to go to Albufeira to die. But mind you, they say that about Ciudad Real as well, so I'm not quite sure what the connotation is. But anyway, the Calne of the Real Hooker, there's a limestone plateau, so you wouldn't know it was there. If you get onto the minor roads, you can drop in one end of this canyon and go 40 miles along it to Alcalá del Hooker, the far end. And it's just like its own different weird world. And this place here, Ojera, there is only one bridge to get to the town. It's on top of this knob of rock in the middle of the canyon. It's very spectacular. There's the bridge, you can see it. Alcalá, the cliff as you come along the road, you look up and halfway up that big 300-foot cliff, there are square black windows, and they're all windows. And the town is on the other side of this spur of limestone, and there are all these tunnels that come through and out to the other side. Sometimes you see people's washing hanging out. There was quite a big balcony there, and it was a restaurant called Cuevas del Diablo, and it's now a kind of mini museum, but it's quite impressive. I did have one of those moments. The first time I tried to go up there, I was on the Centauro, and I came to a sign. I went into the village. It was all getting a bit cold, and there was a sign that said Cuevas del Diablo, Cuevas del Diablo. So I plumped for left, and it started those long steps. And I've seen Spanish people drive their cars on, so I thought maybe I could go up here. Anyway, I ended up dropping the bike, falling over, having a hell of a time getting back out of it because the cobbles were just so slippery, you couldn't go as good as nice. And a few years later, I tried again, and the cobbles just defeated me again. So then I really got serious and had a really good look at the map and realised that if you go all the way around the back of the town to the castle car park, you can just walk down into it, and it's easy. Going down to the south, again, that doesn't really show very much, but of course Sevilla is superb. It's a big city. It's nice to visit. It can get very hot, and this is the one place where I've had camera mix. Normally I don't have a problem, but then I do stay away a lot from tourist places. You need to keep your eyes out in Seville. Ronda, wonderful place. Although when I first went there 40 years ago, where the Parador is, I don't know if you can see up here, there's a big building just next to that big bridge. Well, when I was there 40 years ago, that was really a North African bazaar. It was just incredible. And 40 years later, I went back and where's it gone? Parador been stuck up there. Ronda is very nice, but it has become very touristy, and it is packed with Far Eastern tourists. And so it's probably trying to find the right time of the year and maybe mid-weekends, but it is nice to explore. The Serenity of Ronda is nice. There's some great places there. There's a little place called Himera de Liva, which is where my parents built a house. And this happens to be, on the right, is oil painting my father made when he was living there. In the middle is one of my sketches when I visited 30 years later. And on the left is a photograph with the Bobby's still in it. So I do like to keep connections, not just find new places. And it was important for me to go back to visit that since my parents have died. The Alhambra, great place. Now the Alhambra is all about exclusion. So if you're going to go there, book early. Get first in. Now one of the things is, I believe you can still do it, if you book with a credit card online, there is a little office behind where the guide's office is, where they've got a load of machines. You stick your card in there and it spits out your ticket. Then you go straight through. You don't have to queue up to get the ticket. Then you get in round the alarm before there's loads of tourists there, and you get some idea of what the place was built for. Because really, all it was built for was to have a load of servant girls bringing you sherbet, and and listening to the sound of the water and things like that. I did have a funny experience there. I was doing that little sketch, that drawing there, and I suddenly got an itch in the back of my neck. I turned round, and there was a Japanese tourist filming me doing my drawing. I thought, go look at it, go look at it. Now, in Cordoba, I love Cordoba. Out of Granada, Sevilla, and Cordoba, Cordoba is my favourite. It's a bit smaller. And that is partly because of La Mesquita. La Mesquita is the mosque. It is now a cathedral as well. But one of the things is, those columns, all the columns in that fantastic building are polished from here to here. And I wondered why. They're all different marbles. And then I realised that it is because of thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people's hands just walking around, because people walk around there and trail their hand around it. And it's human sweat and oil that has polished that stone. And so for me, that's one of the things about the Mesquita. It is about humanity. It's about all. It's inclusion, not exclusion. 600,000 years ago, Atapuerca, amazing. To think that far back. And that brings me back to wars. On the way back up, of course, you do want to go to the Roman aqueduct at Segovia. Now, this wasn't used until 86, and it does not have any water. It is like Lego. That whole structure is socketed together. There is no water holding it together. And there was scaffolding on it one time. I talked to a tourist lady. I said, what's going on? She said, those Romans, they didn't use very good stone. And yes, the stones are rounded, they're exfoliated, but I think that's probably due to our cars more than to the Romans choosing the wrong stuff. But anyway, it got pretty bad. The Moors, of course, ruled Spain from 700 to 1492. That's a long time. And the Christians said they chucked them all out. But I don't really believe they did, because if you look at the Spanish people, so many have not only the looks of the Berbers, but also, it's one of the things I think which is special about Spain. That is the Berber way of the traveller being somebody you helped. When you cross the desert, you help them, you take them in, you give them water, you give them food. And that is what I have found so often on my trips around Spain. Wonderful, wonderful openness to help. I've been by the side of the road having a drink of water on my bike, or looking at a map, and somebody stops and says, do you need a hand? Do you need any help? I had one come out near Oviedo. I'd just been trying to find the right slip road to go further along. And I said that to him. He said, follow me. And drives off in his car, takes me 5-10 miles, and then waves me onto the road. That is that thing about Spain, about looking after the traveller. And it is really part of the richness of Spain, and of actually making it work. And again, it's that thing. Particularly if you're in a group of people, just make that little bit of extra effort to talk to people, rather than just amongst yourselves. There's waiters, there's taxi drivers, there's all sorts of people you can talk to. And when I did one trip with my wife, she complained afterwards. She said, "You spend your whole time talking to taxi drivers and waiters." Yes, because that's how you get to know people and get a feel for the country. So I think the history is there. It's very important. It's one of those things that you can get from it. The El Escorial is amazing, built in 1563. These places are there to be found. fiestas can be anywhere, anytime, you just don't know them, because all the locals know about it. They don't know fiestas on, so they don't bother advertising it. So again, sometimes it's great. When I'm on my own, I don't book anything in advance, I just travel. And then if I get sucked into a fiesta, I get sucked into a fiesta. And you don't know what's going to happen. The Moros and Cristianos, amazing fiestas down in Andalusia, where everybody dresses up and enacts things. Alcoy, between Alicante and Valencia, has one of the most amazing fiestas, if you can catch that. It's early in the year, and they build a huge wooden castle, and there's all sorts. These feelers, little clubs, in all the little, this was in a tiny little village, but they had their club all through the year, putting in money, sitting around one evening a week, making their costumes and having a good time. And it's that sense of community is one of the things, again, about Spain. They have not lost that sense of community. Everywhere there's a Plaza Mayor, and where there's a Plaza Mayor, one, they tend to stick a blooming great big car park underneath it. What a good idea. There's somewhere to park, right in the centre of the town. But it's pedestrianised, and everybody walks around it. And one of the things, I remember being in really wars, and just in that Plaza Mayor, and I watched a family walk across there, and the 14-year-old boy put his arm round his son, his father's shoulders, and I just thought, you know, that's not something you really see in this country. People have still got that sense of community, and that's one of the things to key into. You can't really see that. That was Senna Public in my little village, where I'm the honorary Welshman. There were 40 of us with wine and food. I had peeled potatoes, everybody likes in, and just had a great time. These are my two friends in the Guardia Civil. I am riding, my riding jacket has the Guardia Civil on it because one of those guys, after I dropped the bike and they helped me pick it up and stuff, and I was riding along and they came up behind me on their bikes and he ripped it off his uniform and gave it to me as we were doing 40 miles an hour, and I'm going, no, how do I take it? And if you're pleasant with them, then they will be pleasant with you. And they are generally good people, not bad people. Obviously, in the Costas and places, tourist traps, they can get fed up with people who drink too much, pains in the neck. So the one thing I do say is just don't give the Guardia Civil lip, because it ain't worth it. They'll get it for something. Road safety. There's always going to be cows. I was up in the Pyrenees, and there were blue flashing lights, and I couldn't work out. I talked to somebody earlier, and he had gone off ahead on his bike. Oh no, I hope he hasn't had an accident or something. Anyway, eventually I found there was about 5,000 goats and sheep going up the main road, which was about like the A1 from Trent to Sort or something like that. And the Guardia Civil just closed the whole road. And thousands of sheep went to the summer pastures. Why not? Of course, it was all right, but it was a bit smelly afterwards, and I didn't like all that greasy sheep shit on the road. That's the one where you come out of a junction, and the road hasn't been split for you by a line in the middle. That's one of the ones to watch out for, where you just automatically go onto the wrong side of the road. As you can out of petrol stations. Yes, it's always good to look left. Roundabouts. The vehicle in the outside lane has the priority. So don't cut inside thinking that the person on your outside is going to turn off on the first junction. Because he may not. They may be going all the way round. And if you're going to the second one, you may get caught out. It's worth watching on the roundabouts. I mean, after all the years, I once went the wrong way around a mini roundabout because I wasn't pointed in the right direction. I was flustered about getting out of the town, and it was just there, and of course automatically went the wrong way. Turning from a major to a minor road, do cross. Personally, I think it's a damn good idea, and there are a lot of junctions in this country that should be done that way. It's far safer. Coming back onto the main road, by the way, the single solid white line is not to be crossed. Well, when you're going to be spotted, that is. Do not, because the Guardia will always get you for that. And you can come back on, and there's a giveaway lane in the middle of the carriageway. Now, one of the great things is now, a lot of places, they put red shell grip on it, which really marks it out. Whereas otherwise, you could be mistaken for thinking that it was just a wide piece of road if the sun was on it, or the marks had faded. But you must not go straight across. You must go down that to the dotted line. I've heard of somebody who, biker, went across the solid line to take a photograph. And the guy said, no, you can't do that. That's not to be crossed. He said, okay, so he got away with it, telling off. He went on down the road and did it again. He got fined. Idiot. Radar controlled lights, just do watch out for them. They are triggered by a car going too fast. Now, they're flashing amber, and then down there, they will sometimes, some of them go red when you get close for about 5 seconds, so watch out. Also, some Spanish person coming in behind you, speeding, will trigger the light, and it goes red. You are liable to stop for it. They don't. You will see them a lot of the time drive straight through that red light, because it turns back to flashing amber after 15 seconds or whatever it is. So where these things are, and they are all over Portugal in particular, in every little village, I'm always looking in my rearview mirror just to make sure, keeping over to the right, just to be safe. We can't go through those things, we won't be able to read them. Oh, the travel log, the European accident statement. Now, what an amazing idea. It's the same form in all the European languages. You carry yours with you. The other people have it. If you have an accident, you fill it out, it's identical, and you swap part of it so that both people know what has happened and both versions are there. Now, this is great if there's then any legal action or if the police turn up, you've already got them. You can download them from online in this country, and you can then print them out and take them with you. I've carried one for 30 years. I've never used it, but it's there on the bike. Some lovely campsites. I'm going to be running out of time, so basically what I will do is say, has anybody got a quick question? And then what I'm going to do is, I've got some of my books. I'll be outdoors there where the table is, next to my bike. If anybody wants to look at my bike, it's wonderful Continental tyres. I'm being sponsored to Continental tyres, but they really are the best tyres I've ever had. So I'll tell you about that. Any quick questions?
What's your preferred method of getting to Spain? Is it the Santander?
Preferred method of getting to Santander? To Spain? Yes, I favour Plymouth Santander, partly because I live in mid-Wales, straight down the M5, rather not straight, because the damn thing's parking lot most of the time. But it's one night, and I like that. People complain about it being very expensive, a ferry, but realistically, if you add up the costs of going down through France, apart perhaps from the high season, you will find that the real costs are really about equivalent, because you've got to have accommodation, you've got to eat French food, and your tyres are getting squared off because a lot of the French roads are really dead straight. So, yeah. And also they have a far more active police force who are likely to stop you from anything. And, I once was going down through the lawn, and suddenly this guy stepped out pointing a gun at me. And I damn near dropped the body. And it was a speed camera. Scary. Anyway, yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, right.
Many times it used to have a campus thing right on the border, but you can't
You may do, yes. Anyway.
Also, when you're up to high altitude, it's really hard to breathe.
No, high altitude in Spain isn't a problem for breathing, and it's not a problem for the vehicles either. I've never had that problem. The only thing is that you'll find that in some ways your tyres don't get so hot so fast. I will talk about my favourite campsites and everything else, but I want to give time for the next person to set up. So I'll thank you all for coming and listening to me.
Thanks, Duncan. That was absolutely awesome. I learned a lot and wetted my appetite for some more travel plans, unfortunately. Certainly, you do go and find them outside if you're books, if you've got any questions. I know you'll be very happy to give you more information. And coming up in just a few minutes, we've got Vanessa Ruck, who's our next speaker in the afternoon, so if you're able, do hang around and have a completely different kind of conversation with Vanessa.